Good evening, everybody. It's Thursday night, a little after 9 o'clock, and a couple of quick points. Uh, One is these mints are going absolutely crazy. I just watched a video in which somebody received a product, I think from the Perth Mint, that had a glowing koala in it, and it was so glowing that they actually have a little light in the top of the box, so it highlights the glowing part of the koala. Now, I don't even want to think about what the premium was on that coin, but we're thinking, down the line, we're thinking, we'll say, just for the sake of it, $100 silver. Well, if we get the $100 silver, there's only one reason we'll get there, and that is because industrial use will so outstrip paper silver that paper silver will have to go out of existence because the because no one will want it because industry has eaten up all the real silver. And only when industrial use approaches 70–80% of the use of silver a year will we see $100 silver and maybe $200 silver. And you say, well, why would we see that then? Because the amount of silver that is used in each of these devices is almost negligible. So the difference between $27 silver and $100 silver in an iPod or in a computer isn't going to change the price of that iPod or computer. So the industry would be willing to pay that. And that's when we'll see the high prices. But if you want to see the high price, you're going to have to shut the battery down, scrape the fancy stuff off of that 1 ounce coin, and clean it up, and send it in and get your $100. Because with all that junk on it, you're not going to get $100 for it. You're never going to see the premium that you probably had to pay for that coin. And the mints are just going absolutely nuts, competing with each other. How many little things can they do to a coin to make a $27 piece of silver go for $54 or $38 or $42 when all you're really holding is that piece? Now, all you people are saying, well, these premiums, as the price of silver goes up, the price of the premiums will will follow suit. Not always the case, and often it's the opposite case, especially in junk silver. I know now junk silver that even though it's really cheap is at one of the highest premiums it's ever been because there isn't any out there. Another thing that I can't understand is you take a corporation. Now corporations are sitting on $2 trillion in cash. All right, Apple alone is sitting on $400 billion worth of cash. I think they said each share of Apple, the cash value of that alone is 146 bucks, which is unparalleled. Although Apple's seen quite a cruise down from 700 to 450. But aside from that, that money is off of the sidelines. And if that money would be distributed in dividends and things, then people might circulate and spend it, and that would be another $2 trillion into our economy, a $14 billion economy, which would be which would be 14, a little over 14% addition to the economy, which would be terrific for people buying things and getting this nation going. But one of the reasons is that there's such uncertainty, whether it be Obamacare or whether it be we'll talk in a second about the banks in Cyprus. But look at the crazy surge in bitcoins. Bitcoins have almost doubled in the last week, maybe even more than doubled. I mean, you see the chart on them, and it's going to make Fibonacci roll over in his grave if he isn't dead already. He will be. But it's because of the insecurity they feel and anything to do with the government. Now, bitcoins, I don't know what happens. I'm not that well versed in them to know what happens to them if the grid goes down. Now, if there's a major collapse, or if there's a cyber attack. I'm not sure if bitcoins have any value at all in a non-electronic system. You know that silver you can carry around with you, even paper cash you can carry around with you if it's not locked up in a bank in a banking account. But there's the other thing. Now on top of all these other problems, we have people going on saying that Congress passed a law where they can attach your savings just like they did in Cyprus. Well, they didn't, and it won't happen here. The government guarantees you up to 250,000 a person per account, and they can't go back on that without admitting a total collapse of the entire system. And then the 250,000 won't mean anything because there won't be anything that they can do about it. There'll be so many runs on so many banks. Now let's say, but we're getting off topic, which isn't unusual for me. But we've seen this recent, which I call a total crash, you know, in silver, and part of the reason, a little part, is because of the everybody's worried about everything else, and maybe some of this money did come out of silver and go into bitcoins. Uh, I don't know who keeps the record on these bitcoins, if there's any transparency at all, because it's all encrypted and everything else. But there's somebody making big money on bitcoins, and I think there's a genuine bubble in bitcoins. But I'm, I don't have any, so I could give two craps if bitcoins go to $5,000 a piece. But J.P. Morgan holds 97% of all the shorts on silver, and they hold so many shorts that the amount of shorts they hold alone is equal to 12.5% of all the silver that they estimate will be mined in the world this year. Now, no company has ever held a position like that in any single commodity. And the Federal Exchange Commission, this is a violation of it, but everybody looks the other way. Now, we don't know uh, as far as COMEX and everybody, what the government is allowing now for how many ounces of silver you have to hold for how many contracts. But uh, J.P. Morgan has 23,000 contracts, and they're 5,000 ounces apiece, that they are holding shorts. Now, sooner or later, they got to cover them, but it's not in their advantage to cover them until they're sure the market is absolutely bottomed out. Now, they can very well, by getting in maybe 100 to 1, getting in the paper market and dropping huge amounts of paper silver, by talking their clients into dropping it or whatever, and manipulate the market so they can drive the price by paper silver. That's where the price is set. They can drive that price down until they feel that they can't go any further, and then they'll start to cover their shorts. Nobody should be allowed, and well, they're not, but apparently the Exchange Commission is looking the other direction. Um, J.P. Morgan is holding these shorts. So what can we do about it? Well, we can buy silver at a pretty damn reasonable price. Uh, and I haven't, I'll be honest with you, I haven't bought any silver since in 5 days. Uh, yeah, 5 days. But I figure I'll be buying this weekend. I didn't buy during the week. I was very, very tempted to send in an order to Amex. You could get maple leaves for $2.49 over spot. You can get Apex rounds for $1.29 over spot, and we're talking Apex rounds at one time. We were talking $28. You could buy an ounce of silver from Apex of their own rounds, and then with shipping, of course. But that's a unparalleled price. We haven't seen that in a long time. Now, silver eventually has to go up. And how much further it can be driven down is remarkable, because last year the three major mines that mined only silver, their cutoff cost was $31 an ounce. So if they're losing $4 for every ounce of silver they're getting out of the ground, they're not going to be in business long. And that'll take over 20% of the silver off the market. So how long they can hang on, and why J.P. Morgan thinks it's in their interest to to keep the price down like this, can be only one thing, that they're buying long, they're going to go long on silver. And when they go long on silver is when they cover their shorts and drive the price of silver up. And when it starts to go up, if J.P. Morgan hops in, like I think they will, it should go up pretty rapidly up to the $29–30 range again. But who knows? There's so many factions out there. Now the banks in Cyprus, now they wanted a tax, put a tax on all holdings, and a very hefty tax on everything over $250,000. Uh, it's not going to happen here, because the people that write the rules are the people with more than $250,000 in the banks. So it's not that isn't going to happen here. There could be a run on a couple of banks here, uh, just due to liquidity in those individual banks, but we're not going to see anything here like we saw in Cyprus, especially since the government here can print up as much money as rapidly and inject it into the society as they please. But the main message here was uh, this I can't stress it enough. Oh, I even saw, I think Brother John, who I rarely watch, I saw one of his the other night where he was recommending buying dimes. So he said, well, buy all the dimes and get all the dimes out of there first, because he sees that, that these things, that dimes and sterling and all that, are being melted every year, and they surely are. And we're all seeing the upward pressure on junk silver. So it's often the case now that junk silver, that you can get generic rounds for the same price as you can get junk. But I'd still go with my dimes, because if something comes along and I can flip a dime to somebody, it's better than giving them an ounce and expecting some kind of fee of change. So I think that everybody that's suckered in, just like the American quarters, yeah, once they start and they found out they could make a profit on them because everybody was collecting them, there's no end to them. Then there's territorial quarters, and then there's park quarters, and then there's the president quarters, yada yada yada. And that's what's happening in the competition with these mints. They're finding out more and more ways to make more and more money off of less and less silver. So for everybody, I know everybody's going to be down on me. Everybody's going to say, "Why don't you get off of this bandwagon?" Because sometimes that coin makes you happy. Well, it'll make you a lot more happy if you had two of them, and some form of financial, not catastrophe, but just financial necessity comes up. You'd like to be able to sell two of them rather than one, and you'd like to be able to sell something without having to sell it below spot, because you paid a higher and higher premium on it because it has some extra junk on it. And you got to be careful. I mean, these mints are are in business to make money, and they're in business to convince you that you have to have that little gemstone in it, or you have to have a little uh, 3D marker or whatever the hell they're willing to put in it, and they're willing to put out, instead of 800,000 of one thing, they might put out 80,000 of 10 things, and then you feel necessity to get one of each 10, and each one of the 10 things is going to have a much higher premium than if they put out the 800,000. So bring it on, because I know I'm going to get buried in an avalanche of that makes me happy stuff. But what makes you happy may not necessarily be in your best economic interest.